2025 in reading for me has been a big year, as you can see. In 2022 and 2023, I didn't read a lot, so even though it's only 19 books, 19 is a pretty big number for me right now, because I remember after reading It by Stephen King in 2018, which took me a year to finish, I fell into a very deep and long reading slump. If you were to ask me, do I have a secret for getting out of a reading slump? I don't. It depends a lot on how you feel, on, what you would like to read. What helped me was to take a pretty long break, even though I always read in this period of time. It took me some time to get back on track, and I did in 2025. Not all of them fit into the camera, but they are 19, and even though not all of them were a good read, I enjoyed them all. So let's start with the first one. First one is Blind Spot by Paula Hawkins. I read from Paula The Girl on the Train and Into the Water, and I loved both of them, and I wanted to try some other books from her. I have all of them, I just haven't read them all. I think I have one left that I have to read. This is a novella. It's not a book, it's very short. I think it has maybe 100 pages. Yes, 122 pages. I enjoyed this book because it was the first that I read in 2025, and it took me, I think, a few days, maybe even less than 2 days. But I didn't feel what I felt while reading the first two ones, Into the Water and The Girl on the Train. To me, it was more of a enjoyable read that you do on a weekend, and I felt the need of reading more, even though I was pretty surprised by the ending, because that's what Paula Hawkins is very famous for, surprising you with her thriller books. I felt the need of reading more of the story. To me, this was a 3 out of 5 stars book. Next one is by the same author, Paula Hawkins, A Slow Fire is Burning. I've been having this book in my library for some time, and for some reason I just didn't feel like it was time for it. After reading Blind Spot, I felt the need of reading more from this author, so I went into reading this, which took me a few weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks, and unfortunately it didn't cut it for me to be like the first two ones. I still felt that I couldn't connect with the characters as much as I did with the characters from The Girl on the Train. As far as I know, it has a 3.5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and my review was also 3 out of 5 stars. Next one is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I went into this book without knowing anything about the author or about the book. I just knew that it was an international phenomenon and everyone was reading it, everyone was talking about it, and I usually don't go into very popular books while they're popular. I usually find my time after no one's talking about them anymore to give them a shot. But I felt like reading something easy, an easy read, and this was that for me. I think it took me maybe 3 or 4 days to finish it, and once I read the first page, I couldn't stop. It's a good thriller. It's not amazing, but it's good. And after watching the movie as well, which appeared a few months ago, I think that the adaptation was pretty true to the book, even though some key details, I would say, were left out, but maybe that was because they wanted to leave more space for the upcoming movies, because from what I read, they want to do a sequel as well. But overall, it was a very enjoyable read. I couldn't put the book down, and that happens very rarely with me. I remember I was at my job working from home and I couldn't concentrate on doing what I do because I wanted to finish the book and see what's happening next. So that's very important to me. I loved this read, and it was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. Next one is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I first watched the trailer for the Apple TV series, and I loved the actors. I loved what the series seemed to be about. I remember I didn't want to watch the whole trailer because I loved the subject a lot, and I remember seeing this book on the bookshelves a few years ago, and I knew that there was a book, so I said, let me read the book first and then I will give the series a chance. It was very promising to me. It started very promising. The subject, it's about dark matter and wormholes and traveling in time into different dimensions. It's a science fiction book, but at the same time, I would also call it a drama. I expected more of it. The first 100 pages went, they flew. Maybe I read them in 2 days. But then the rest of the book kind of disappointed me. It was pretty slow, in my opinion. I was expecting it to be a bit more interesting and pretty repetitive because, without giving any spoilers, the main character had to find his family from other dimensions. So he had left his home dimension and doing these experiments, and then he had to find his way home, and that just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating, and I got pretty bored of it pretty soon, unfortunately. Knowing that I want to watch the series, I didn't want to stop reading a book and I wanted to finish it. So I did finish it, and even though I liked the ending, a lot of questions were left unanswered, and it was a 2 out of 5 stars from me. Next, we have Salem's Lot by Stephen King. Stephen King is, if not my favorite author, top 2, top 3 favorite authors. Salem's Lot was a journey that I would like to have again, because similar to it took me some time to read it. I remember that I first started it in 2024 and I didn't feel like reading it at that time, so I put it on break, and then I wanted to give it another chance because I knew it was one of the core books, the classics from Stephen King, and it did not disappoint. To me, it's my second favorite Stephen King book after, of course, It was a 4 out of 5 stars for me, or maybe 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. Why not 5? Maybe knowing how good of an author King is, and after reading It, I maybe was expecting just a little bit more in terms of action, because the action, it takes some time for the action to begin, and it has a few chapters when you read the story from the town's point of view. So the town basically tells you the story of the people who live in the very small town, and you know what everyone's doing. After finishing it, I understand why he did that, and it was like the story was building onto something, and the build-up was very satisfying at the end. And I love vampires, I love vampire stories. This is a vampire story, in case you didn't know. It's an amazing book, and I'm sure that I will be rereading it in maybe, 5, 10, 15 years, but it's a classic. I'm glad I didn't stop reading it for good, and I gave it another chance because it's my second Stephen King book. Now, comparing the book to the movies, I only watched the version from, I think it was from the 70s or 80s, I can't remember exactly, and the latest one from 2024, 2025. I think I prefer the latest one, only because in the 70s, 80s, the CGI wasn't that good. Even though the story is more close to the book from the 70s movie. I still prefer the 2024 one because of the CGI. It needs CGI, even though the story was changed from time to time. Some characters didn't cut it for the movie. Some of them were, introduced in the movie, or, they were supposed to be maybe a man and they were a woman in the movie. I didn't mind those details. I liked those details, and I like that they give it another shot. Maybe I would have preferred if they would have done a TV series, just like they did with It, with the prequels of It, and now we can see a lot more of the story from the book, which is huge, covered in the series. And after watching the series It, Welcome to Derry, I appreciate the book even more, because even though it's not, very close to the book, it can bring more fans to come and read the book, because the book is very different. But I don't want to do a review of It right now. I will be doing a review of It, but not right now. That needs to be on a separate video, because there's so many things to be said about that book and so many details that I even forgot, and I would like to reread the book because the first time when I read it, I don't know, I feel like I need to be doing that again. Next, we have the second book from the Housemaid series, which is The Housemaid's Secret, and the third one from the series, which is The Housemaid is Watching. Let's take them one by one. So, I also read them very quickly. I fell into the story just like you probably did, all of you. I think it's more of a guilty pleasure read, because even though the story isn't as rich as different thrillers, for example Paula Hawkins thrillers or Gillian Flynn's thrillers are, you can't put the book down, and that's very important when you want to read something that's easy, that will make you want to take the book and read it. And to be honest, I don't remember what happened in this book. I just remembered I read it in a few days. I also remember I didn't like it as much as the first one, because in the first book you get a kind of epilogue, and it tells you that it makes you think that the story from the epilogue will be continued in the second book, which is not the case. The epilogue from the first book is being addressed in a few words, in a few sentences in this book, but not enough. And again, I don't really remember what happened in this book, just a few details, and I didn't appreciate it as much as I appreciated the first book. So unfortunately, this was only a 2 stars out of 5 for me. The third book, The Housemaid is Watching, was more of a epilogue to the whole story. It had elements from the first and the second book. Of course, the story brings back memories, brings back, things that the housemaid used to do. She's a bit older now, and the point of view seems a bit more, less complicated than the first two ones. You can see that the characters has aged. She's now a different person. It didn't surprise me as much as the first one surprised me. I gave it a 3 stars because, it was the ending and I liked the ending, but it missed a few details that I would have liked it to have. It was a good book. It was an okay book. I wouldn't say good. It was an okay book. 3 out of 5 is like the middle, a bit more than the middle. But I'm glad I read the series. And I also have the novella, which is in between the second and the third book, The Housemaid's Wedding. But I haven't read it yet. I feel like because I didn't read it when I had a chance to read it whilst reading these books, now it wouldn't hit the same. But I have it anyway. Next book is called The Falling. I had very high expectations before picking this book up, and maybe I shouldn't have those expectations anymore. I read a lot about this book and I adored the subject. It reminded me of 9/11 because the whole action takes place in a plane with a terrorist attack. And when you read something like this about a book, you have very high expectations because it's a sensitive subject. This is also a thriller. It should keep you, stuck. And it didn't keep me stuck to the book. I expected a lot more from it, and it took me some time to finish it. I mean, it only has like 300 and something pages, and I would normally read this maybe in like a week, but I think it took me like 3 weeks to finish it. And I wanted to finish it because I was really curious of how the terrorist attack would go. Is the plane gonna crash? That's how the book is being described. A plane that is about to crash due to a terrorist attack. Pretty disappointing, and my rating was 2 out of 5 stars because I liked a lot the subject. And fun fact about the author, she used to work on a plane as a flight attendant, so she had knowledge about how things are going there, and you could see that the research was done. It's just that it didn't keep me hyped, and I really wanted to like it, but I didn't. Next books. It's Not Summer Without You and We'll Always Have Summer. These are the second and the third volumes from the trilogy The Summer I Turned Pretty, and these might be one of the favorites books that I read in 2025. Of course, you either love it or you don't. I loved it. I remember in 2023 when the second season of the Prime series aired, that it appeared on my For You page in Prime, and I was like, I need to watch this. This is I don't know, it brought back memories from my childhood, and maybe memories that I would have wanted to have. And I watched the first season in maybe 2 days. I loved every bit of it. I loved the characters, I loved the actors. I loved the fact that Jenny was involved because I could see a very big difference from other TV series, which were book adaptations. And this one is a guilty pleasure for me. Actually, not even a guilty pleasure. This one is a pleasure for me. It was a pleasure to watch. It was a pleasure to read because I read the first book in 2023 after I watched the first season, and I took my time to get to the second and third book, and I read them both very quickly. I didn't want to read them quickly because I liked them too much. I don't even know how to describe it, but when you find that series and you're like, I finally found something that I love. I love reading this. I love the subject. I love the characters. I love everything. They're very easy reads. I mean, don't expect a classic, but I just loved it. And they were, I think, 3 stars and 4 stars. Check. They were both 4 stars. And the first one was 5 stars, I think. I expected a bit more from the ending of the third book. The epilogue was pretty short. I understand, let's say I understand why, but I expected a bit more. And after watching the series as well, I was also left with some, I wouldn't say questions, but I wanted more. It's that type of series, that type of book that keeps you hooked and you want to read more and more and more. You want more for it to be to the story. But thankfully, Jenny is giving us a movie after now that the series has ended, and I hope that it will be more of Belly and Conrad. Now the question is, are you Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah?